There are a few things that we need to get. So if I go, I kind of just hit the organic section of our grocery store. But when you look in there, look at labels even on your organic, and you'll see that a lot of them still have the dyes. A big thing is people are becoming aware we're not supposed to do seed oils. A lot of the organic section has tons of seed oils, and that seed oils have been linked to cancers and different other health issues. There's the regulations, but you really still have to be very much an informed consumer and educate yourself.
You're listening to Food Tech Talk, Supply Chain Insights from Farm to Fork, a podcast discussing the latest trends and technologies in the food and supplements industries, brought to you by Trustwell, featuring conversations with regulatory experts, quality and safety champions, and thought leaders across the industry. I'm your host, Lydia Adams, VP of Marketing at Trustwell. If you're loving the conversation, don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned to the end of the episode where you'll hear our guests tell us their key food industry predictions for 2025. All right, let's jump right in. On today's episode of Food Tech Talk, Supply Chain Insights from Farm to Fork, we're delighted to welcome Tony Ellsworth, founder of Ellsworth Crossing, a faith-based, veteran-owned enterprise committed to holistic, farm-to-fork food sourcing. Tony combines his lifelong passion for grilling, personal health transformation, and deep ties to Nebraska farmers to create a model that prioritizes quality, sustainability, and community connection. Welcome to the show, Tony.
Thank you, Lydia. Thank you for having me on and taking some time with me today. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited for this one. I love hearing more about your story. So maybe if you can share with our audience the pivotal moment in your personal health journey that really inspired you to start this company.
Actually, that's a great way to start because it was our personal health journey. I say our because I'm including my wife in that. And as we get talking here, you'll see I tell a lot of people I'm not the brains, I'm just the beneficiary on some of this. My wife Amber has the healthcare background. She was a nurse and then she got fibromyalgia. If anybody's not familiar with that, definitely hard to be on your feet. So her profession took her out of nursing. She went originally to more traditional healthcare doctors and they were prescribing pharmaceuticals and such. And she tried that, hated it, kind of gave her a lot of side effects, fuzzy brain, just didn't like it. So she went to other alternative holistic doctors, functional medicine, led her into that. And when she went to the functional medicine doctor that we still see now, he says, well, I'm going to have to kind of flip you around about 180 degrees. So he did that. She did great. And I saw the benefits that she had. And she really is the health leader in our family. I'm kind of like a lot of guys. I'm almost allergic to doctors. So I saw how well she did. I got up over 50 myself and I started having all sorts of aches and pains, arthritis, heartburn. I was taking Prilosec, different things like that. A lot of times for a lot of folks out there that you don't know where that stuff's coming from and you don't really know how to deal with it. And that's more of the mainstream way that people are treating that. Well, I saw her lead and she says, hey, the doctor says, God makes your body good. And if you begin to just eat right nutritionally, that it'll self-heal. And I'm like, wow, I like that a lot better. I'm interested because I think a lot of guys, if you're like me, you almost think of it as seeing a doctor as a bad mechanic. I'm like, okay, when I go in there, they're just going to find way more things wrong with me and run up a bill. So when you hear somebody that says it's going to be nutrition and food related, that's worth a try. So I went in there. They do, on the functional medicine, do blood tests up front. So a lot of people wonder how that process works. Well, it works a lot like when you see a traditional doctor, just the solutions are different. So he did a blood test. And when we got my results back, my heart, liver, and kidney were in the wrong category. And I was pre-diabetic. Not good, but what I say is kind of picture of America, unfortunately. We hear these words all the time, especially diabetes. So I changed my eating, my diet, a few supplements, but definitely no pharmaceuticals, no surgeries, nothing like that. And within 11 months, he wanted to test me again. I knew I felt way better, but I thought, gosh, 50 years doing it the wrong way, I'm going to see an incremental improvement. But when he tested it, it was significantly better. My heart, liver, kidney, totally clean, no longer pre-diabetic. So I'm giving you a skeptic's testimony here. And like I said before, if you were hearing Amber talk right now, she sounds very sciencey and healthcare. And so it's kind of good when people come into the store because they can hear two different testimonies and they hear somebody who's really smart. Now, the one thing, though, that I knew, so the doctor's recommending that you eat meat and foods that are as much as possible, no chemicals, non-GMO when possible, no hormones, these sort of things. So in my background, I kind of had some ideas about that, but still he's a doctor. So I said, where do you recommend? And he says, I don't know, buy organic. I can tell you organic is a government standard. I'm not saying it's bad, but you still should do some more research because it doesn't necessarily tell you all the health qualities of something. It's just a standard. So I told Amber at that point, I said, okay, I'm taking over. My family's 4th-generation Nebraska ag, and I grew up running around central and western Nebraska, which anybody who's not from the state, Omaha and Lincoln are the major cities way on the east side of the state. And everything else is very, very much farmland and agriculture. Well, I knew Nebraska is very rich with small farmers and agriculture, and we can just go directly to farmers. So that's what we were doing. And this all, was taking place right around the time when COVID just kicked in. So that's what led us into the store. We were on our own health journey. We have a small farm ourselves. And I was just going to do this sourcing of different farm meats. We started with chicken and do it ourselves on our own farm for our own family's benefit. And then we can get into that. But that was what led us into the store. I tell a lot of people I was just doing it for my family and it turned into the store.
Hello, Food Tech Talk listeners. Your host, Lydia here. And if you work in food safety, quality, or compliance, this is your sign to stop multitasking and mark your calendar. Trustwell's Reconnect 2025 is coming October 21st through the 22nd. It's the food industry's go-to event for connecting with peers and getting expert-led insights on everything from regulatory shifts and formulation challenges to FSMA 204, traceability, labeling, and supplier management. You'll hear from leaders at Five Guys, the FDA, Wawa, Fresh Del Monte, Taco John's, and more. So whether you're in R&D or food safety, or just starting to modernize your supply chain, this event covers it all, from recipe to recall. Register free at trustwell.com/reconnect. And if you can't attend live, you'll still get full on-demand access after the event. And now, back to the show. I love that you kind of came from that consumer standpoint at the outset where you're like, I'm looking for this. And I know you said, your upbringing in Nebraska had a lot of influence. Talk to me about how that really formed your perspective on specifically food quality and sourcing.
That's the part that I felt way more comfortable with. For sure. I ran around central and western Nebraska with my dad and granddad. I saw it hands-on. When you see it, you put eyes on it. It's different than reading an article. So I was brought up that small farm is good. And sometimes I don't think a lot of people don't have a perspective on that. So, and sometimes I forget. So I was even asking my dad a few weeks back, I'm like, when you were growing up, how big was a small farm? Because I knew we had farms in our family. And he's like, small farms, a family would earn a complete living, provide for themselves off of 150 to no more than 200 acres. And typically a small farm, even now, like in our store, we have over 100 small farmers and producers that raise humane and holistic in our store. The definitions just have really changed. Most of my small farmers, like I have a pork farmer and he just does pork. And I have a cattle farmer, I have a bison rancher. But these 150, 200 acre farms, which are much smaller than what we're used to today, would have a variety of animals. They would have chickens, they would have, some pigs, they would have some cows. So even when we're saying small farms, it's just the scale has gone way more to the corporate side. And so you can't really cheat the process. That's the aspect that I knew. So we all are supposed to get our nutrition starts in the ground, in the dirt, in the soil, and it's supposed to go to the plant and then to the animal and then to us. That's the chain. So when everything's being raised humane and holistic, this works appropriately. When I originally bought the store, Dean was the dad, and his simple way to say it is, happy animal, healthy animal. That's a simplistic way to look at it. And I can tell you, if you look online, and there's plenty of videos out there, when you see these corporate, and they call it intensive farming, it's too close together. The animals are too close together. The vegetables, everything is like thousands of acres, and it's packed in too tightly. So now we're depleting soil. There's no nutrients in the soil. And both your health qualities and your flavor qualities. So some people go, they're not as concerned about their health. They should be, but that's like the first thing people think of on food is what does it taste like? But your nutrition and your taste qualities go hand in hand. So now when I'm depleting the soil, I got no flavor in my vegetables, for example, or even in your meats. So what do these companies have to do now? They chemically supplement. So now we're using dyes. Now we're using flavor thing. Most people understand that, a lot of those chemicals are bad. Like MSG is the one that there's more than that. But okay, I'm not supposed to have MSG. Yeah, that's a flavor enhancer, but you don't need that when it's raised naturally in the right way. And even when we were first buying this business, we just passed our 4-year anniversary. And when I was doing my business loan, I got asked by the board. I actually got the business loan originally from the Center of Rural Affairs here in Nebraska. So they're quizzing me, and how are you going to compete with, Walmart and Costco and these big grocery stores? And I just told them, I said, quite frankly, they'll never do what I do. So it's way better for you. Your health qualities are higher. Your taste qualities are higher. And yet you don't have the scalability, that corporate likes to see for the profit. And a lot of times I just explain, I try and break things down so people understand it simple. And we're used to doing that in the store quite a bit. So the bigger providers, the way they make money on food is speed to market, weight, and shelf life. That's the 3 main ways. So speed to market is hormones. That's going to speed up the process to get, like, for example, a cow into market. And it's going to increase weight. So they like those 2 things, but hormones are bad for us. And then shelf life is typically nitrates. I just call it the bad salt. And I'm just kind of hitting high level things. There's so much more than that, but that's a simple way to understand it. And so that's what they do. Now, when you go local, these farmers, like, to give you one example, like on our pork farmer, typically in the store, people are buying a 400-pound feedlot sow. That's where you're getting your bacon from. That's where you're getting your pork shoulders and sausage from. Our farmer butchers at 280 pounds. That's a 120-pound difference. And he's using, some of the higher quality breeds, the Durick breed or Berkshire. So that it's just a lot. And, you do have to pay a little bit of a premium to get that. But I always, you get what you pay for. And when you go local, not only is the environment that the animals are raised in so much better, but there's no transportation in semis across the country. So even if something, a lot of people, I think, recognize, oh, Europe's got way better food than us. That's probably true. I don't know. I don't live in Europe, but I imagine they probably do. But you still have the problem that Europe would have to get it here. So I always recommend to people, I'm like, the more that you stay local, you just wipe out so many of the things that we sometimes see on the TV or news headlines that can be scary about food with contamination, but also just the hormones and the chemicals. You're seeing this a lot in the news lately. The best way to do it is local farmers.
I want to get into how you select the farmers, but first, just kind of going back to this idea of consumer education. And I feel like a lot of people are starting to key into that, and they're looking at, oh, hey, what's in my food? And they're starting to demand a lot of what you talked about in terms of quality. How do you guys educate your customers in terms of what you're offering and how it differs than what they might buy at their local, supermarket?
My favorite way is obviously when people come in and visit in the store. We're very much into personal contact. I always tell people, we're never going to have a self-checkout stand in the store. My wife, Amber, and our daughter, Kaylin, are at the store right now as we speak. And there's tons of people that just go in there and they get to know. I kind of joke, I date myself a little bit. If anybody's watched Cheers back in the 80s, and Cheers, of course, was the place where everybody knows your name. So I kind of joke, if you go into the store, there's a little bell that rings as people enter in, and Amber knows so many people's names. And once people find us, and we're a small business, so that's part of the challenge, is to get the word out. Of course, we're helping to do that right here today on this podcast. But people go in there and they visit with Amber, and the weekends, especially Saturdays, are our busiest day. So usually Amber and we're just talking to people all the time. If we have regulars, we're answering questions and they get educated as they go. But we get a lot of brand new people, and we love that. And they come in at different points in the journey. Just like you were saying, people are more educated. So we do get some people that come in that are very smart. There's, that's a great advantage that we have today, is that there's a lot of information just on YouTube. I watch, some different functional medicine doctors and that sort of thing. You can follow them on YouTube and you can pick and choose. And that's what I'm a big fan of, is people being informed and educated and making their own choices. That's our favorite thing is in person, but there is a lot more than that, like just exactly what we're doing. The podcast, we have a YouTube channel. So I have some different things. A lot of times too, what's nice is being in the store kind of dovetails and lends itself to that. Because sometimes on a Saturday, I'll get the same question 5 times over. It's a hot topic or something like that. A couple things like here in Nebraska, a lot of people, especially with the prices of food going up and especially beef right now, people like, how do I properly buy a quarter cow? So I did a couple videos out there how to properly buy a quarter cow. It applies to half cow or whatever, different sizes. But there's that. We're a little bit outside of it, but Thanksgiving's coming up and people are like, what about my turkey? And I've been asked, I go in and talk at schools. Sometimes I go out to the functional medicine doctors and they'll have a small group. We also do small groups up at the store. We make it free to people so they can come out with a group of 15, 20 people. And sometimes if it's in the evening, we do a wine, cheese, and Wagyu, people like that. If it's in the morning, we do some bullet coffees and breakfast burritos, and we do that free. And I usually give them a tour, answer questions, and they can kind of mingle. We do blogs. So it's a combination of people being in person is the most important thing. But as a small business, we're on TV. We do have about 15 to 20,000 social media followers. So we get the word out through social media as well. And then YouTube.
That's awesome. And when you were talking at the beginning, you talked about you have certain farmers that you're working with. And I really love this topic because I think when we say farm to fork, a lot of times we don't talk about the farming side of it. So, how do you choose the farmers, producers that you're partnering with? And, how do you ensure that they match your standard of quality?
I think it's a very important question that you're asking. I have done one little snippet out there. I was watching a football game last night and ads come on. And what concerns me a little bit is people do get smarter. And then I call it buzzwords. And I want to make sure people don't just get sucked in with buzzwords. Like, for example, grass finished or even, farm raised, cage free. These are little words that you see stamped on packages at the grocery store. And then a lot of times too, as you're surfing through Facebook or any social media, and of course they got the ads there. Somehow they listen to us and they know what we're looking for or whatever. Here's the problem with buzzwords though, is it's easy to stamp that on. And what you really need is a really good source validation. I'm just putting that out front because kind of leading into interviewing the farmers. So as I mentioned, I spent a lot of time running around central and western Nebraska. I knew Nebraska had a lot of really great farmers. And I have a farm background myself. Actually, Amber does too. She grew up on a cattle and bison ranch in Colorado, and then she's got the health care. So I love talking to farmers. And we started off with that when we first bought the business. And I had mentioned my own personal journey. We originally bought the store from Plum Creek Chicken. So Plum Creek Chicken here in Omaha supplies a lot of your Omaha and Lincoln high-end restaurants. And then when COVID happened, it suppressed the restaurants. And so they opened up the store that we now own simply to still just get their chicken out to the public. So we were farm families together and they had Amber run the store. And a couple of months into it, Dean, the dad, says, hey, Tony, what do you think about just buying this? I was calling him up to look for more hours for Amber. So I say, suffice it to say, Amber got more hours. So now we've gone from 10 farmers to 100. So I talk to each one of the farmers and we develop personal relationships with them. So when I first talk to them, I want to know how many acres. Back to what we had talked to before, what I'm looking for is getting away from the intensive farming and much more to basically loving and caring for your animals. They should be, I can tell you all of our small farmers, they care about their animals like their family. I get pictures and and when you have a personal relationship with them, I mean, all the time in my phone, I get one of my farmers and they're sending me pictures of the cattle just giving birth or the chickens out free ranging in the grasses, different things like that. So they're getting sunlight, they're getting out and exercising. The animals are having a good quality life. And when we give the animals a good quality life, then we get in turn the health and the taste things that are good. So that's how I do it. It's very personal and it takes a lot of time. And that's another thing too, to answer the questions of when they ask me, how are you going to compete against the big grocery stores? Does anybody really see the big grocery stores? Are they going to go out and visit all their small farmers and go to their farm and have the farmer out. And a lot of times on Saturdays, we will, even at the store, we call them Meet Your Farmer days. So on Saturdays, a lot of times I'll just have the farmer right into the store. So then people themselves, they can impromptu interview the farmer. They get to shake their hand. They can say, hey, what are you feeding these guys? They can ask any particular questions they want to. And sometimes too, we're outside the city limits. They will bring animals and have them out in the parking lot. So here in a couple of weeks, we have petting zoos. My Wagyu farmer, he last time he was in, he brought a Wagyu bull. A lot of people are very curious about Wagyu. That's kind of an interesting type of beef, high end. So they get to see all these things themselves. And I love it because when people get educated about their food, then it makes sense. Then you're not only getting information from buzzwords. And when you are meeting the farmer and you're knowing this sort of thing, it's not just a stamp. It's not just grass finished. And you go, gosh, I hope that's true. And this is where we're even getting away. Like people are like, well, is organic good, Tony? I'm like, maybe, because we have some small farmers that work very hard to get that certification. So I don't want to take that away from them. And yet, and I don't want to call anybody on the carpet here, but there are some large producers. I could throw out some names. I go, this company is organic. And somebody go, really? Because the large companies have a lot of resources. And at the end of the day, with regulations and different things like that, if they can check all the boxes, but that's why I usually say holistic and humane, probably more than I do organic. But a lot of times I know what people mean when they're saying organic. They're looking for healthy food. But what's important to me is the care, the feeding and the care and how the animals are being raised. So I personally interview all the farmers. And then before they get in there, I make them give me samples. I'm an avid griller and smoker too. So I'm looking for all the health qualities, but I'm also looking for taste qualities. And people say, oh gosh, that must be a hard job. And I go, well, it is, because I say no. And that is one of the things I don't like to do. But there are times when I say no to the farmer for different things. But I don't leave them just there, because I have some great farming resources. Sometimes it's a small farmer who's just getting started, or somebody doesn't know particular things in the industry. And so I'll give them some resources of other farmers that are similar size and that they can reach out to. So it's a very personal interview process. And I tell a lot of customers that come to our store love it, because the source validations by personal relationship, I don't know how many places you're going to get that unless you're in your community and you're talking to the farmer yourself. It would be about the same thing in our store, but generally you're not going to get that too many places. But I guess the short answer to your question is personal relationship, which I think is the best.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing and very unique, and kind of got me thinking about, as your company grows, does it become difficult to maintain those personal relationships and still be built upon that as you're scaling? I think maybe some mid-market type of companies would be interested in that answer.
Yeah, well, we've grown a lot in 4 years. If we had multiple locations, we'd have to think about that. We've grown quite a bit over 4 years. When we first started, we were open Wednesday through Saturday, and it was just my wife and I and our daughter running it. Now we're open 7 days a week. We do have employees. So the scaling is, we're open about double the time that we were previously. And we do actually deliver I do deliveries on Friday. I kind of like that. I'm typically on the farm during the week, and Amber's in the store, and I get to venture out and go visit people that way. But we educate all our employees too. So a lot of it, just like, we're talking about a lot of the basics. I don't think it's overly hard to understand once you understand the principles. If you understand the principles, then obviously we encourage any of our employees, they get discounts and things like that. So they start to develop their own personal testimony. And it's hard to keep it to yourself when you have this good success and you're tasting great food. Like a lot of times if somebody said, you need to go on a diet, you'd go, oh man, this is going to be horrible. I know I need to do this. This is horrible. I can tell you it's a change, but actually I could never go back, because it's not just the health qualities, the flavor qualities of your steaks or your chicken or lettuce, or we're right at the end of it. But man, the tomatoes that come, all of our vegetables are spray free. There's no chemicals on them. And they don't always, the ones in the store sometimes are bigger, like your oranges are super big and very orange, but those are a lot of that. When you taste it, you're like, wow, there's no flavor in this. In fact, at our farm, we have an orchard. So if you looked at our apples, and it's kind of apple season here in the fall, if somebody was looking on a shelf, they'd probably buy the store ones. But what Amber's done is sometimes we buy the store stuff and we do taste samples for people, and they taste they taste the one from the store and they go, wow, there's almost no flavor. And then they taste the apples from our farm, and it's like a flavor explosion. It's just so much different. Eggs are the same thing. So we rarely get away. We work 7 days, 7 days a week. It's hard to get a vacation, but we did get 4 or 5 days away, went up to Wyoming, and we bring our own food with us, and I cook up in the mountains up there. It's a lot of fun, but I forgot eggs. I forgot eggs from our farm. So we borrowed eggs up there, and we know the couple that's up at the cabin there, and she had some eggs from a grocery store. I cracked it open. I was like, you got to be kidding me. It's been so long since I saw a store egg, but the yolk just looked almost translucent to me. The egg yolks from our farm here, they're just such a deep yellow, and they're just so much more flavor. You would think, oh, an egg's an egg. Like here recently, there's been a lot, oh, the price of eggs is too much, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, depends on how you're doing them. But I can tell you the store eggs versus true, eggs from free-range chickens, it's just not even close to the same thing. Obviously, a lot more work goes into that. And so they are a little bit more expensive, but it's worth it when you taste the food. And I try and encourage people to think of their budget holistically. It's like, well, you got your food bill over here, but you also have your health bill. And a lot of people don't realize that those are intertwined. So I'm like, yeah, so you could eat a lot better and see the doctor less. Would that be something that you'd like to entertain? It should be.
Yeah. And I mean, we kind of talked about this a little earlier, but having that food as medicine viewpoint obviously changed your life in a lot of ways. How can people really adopt that maybe can't go to your store in Nebraska, that are trying to do that in their daily life?
That's a great question. That's what we want to do. Keeps Amber and I going is help people. I love it. That people go, how do you work 7 days a week? I go, well, I'm always just helping people. Somebody comes through the front door, I'm helping them. When we work with the farmers, it's helping farmers. So obviously here within the vicinity of the store, we love to have people in the store, people who can't make it. We do deliver, but we ship to 48 states. So there's that. And we're doing that more and more. So that aspect, so you'd asked about scaling. I haven't even really quote, there's so much right here locally. But as we're growing, we are shipping more nationally. And it's kind of nice, too, because the shipping rates have come down. So it's fairly easy to do. Outside of that, I help people, even if they're not buying from us, just to like the basics like you and I are talking about. But I would encourage people, I would say in all 50 states, there's got to be local farmers that you can get in touch with and support. And your small farmers, they really have a hard job. What a lot of them do is they're raising their animals, just like we've been talking about, humane and holistically. It takes a lot of work. They love them. They care for them. It means a lot to them that the animals are doing well and everything. And then they turn around a lot of times and they either have some small website or farmers markets when it's warm. So they're doing a really hard job because the farming, it already takes a lot of resources, and they have to turn around and go to the farmers markets. So I would encourage people out and about, if they can find the small local farmers, that really would help the small farmer. And it's also going to help people around the country to eat healthier.
And something you did mention earlier that I just wanted to touch on was regulatory compliance. And so, I feel like you're in a unique category of food producers that, a lot of, like you said, the bigger guys are not doing these things. So how do you kind of balance the regulatory compliance and then, your high quality requirements that you have for your business?
It's kind of funny. We've been in business 4 years. I thought I had met all the different regulators. You wouldn't believe there's so many regulations. We have a restaurant license. We have to have our egg license. There's a Nebraska state inspector, and then there's county. And then even here recently, we've been working with USDA, and then there's also weights and measures. So, and I'm probably leaving some out. All those are set up, they're there for food safety, and they're there to protect consumers, which is good. And whenever I work with the inspectors, I always tell them I'm here to comply. And then you try to get educated on whatever it is. And then you do try, to comply. And Amber does so good. They can stop in anytime. So it's not like they make an appointment with you. Like they stop in anytime. And Amber does so well. Our state inspector now, his name's Jason. He actually uses our store as a training place because we have farm to fork is actually more difficult than I would say even a regular grocery store, because you are dealing with small farmers and you're dealing with local produce and different things like this. And it's complex because you have federal regulations and you have state regulations both. But we're having done it for 4 years, pretty educated. We're pretty good at it at this point. And that is exactly what we do, is we tell each of them that that's here to comply and work with you. And USDA and the state regulations, a lot of it's just making sure that, like, for example, all the beef needs to be USDA. So we're not a locker ourselves. And a lot of people ask about that. And so I let all the and when I say locker, sometimes not everybody knows what a locker, like a butcher, locker, a butcher. So when the farmers raise their animals, obviously it needs to go to a local butcher or a locker. And then when it gets processed, the farmers usually pick it up themselves and bring it right through our front door. That's the process. But each of your lockers typically need to be USDA certified. And so a lot of them have a USDA official on site. And it's a lot. People, if they saw how much the lockers, the farmers, even ourselves, what we go through just to stay where you're meeting all the regulations, just so people can have their food, I think they'd be blown away by how much work that takes. But we definitely do that. Some things can be state regulated, and every state is a little bit different. Obviously, in Nebraska, we're in tune with what Nebraska requires. Then there's also just all the labeling. So we're just used to it in grocery stores. And it's one of the things I'd encourage people, start looking at all your labels, because if you read the labels in the grocery store, you should run away. If you need a science degree to read your label, that might be a problem. That's one of the easiest ways to get started, is if you can't recognize all the different chemicals. But a lot of times at the grocery stores, there are so many chemicals in there. It's back to what you and I were talking about, the shelf life. So to make more money, they need shelf life. And now you have all the chemicals. Whereas it's actually not bad. It kind of stinks sometimes. But if your food actually, if you don't eat it and it goes rotten in a few days, that's actually can be a good thing, because that means that there's not the chemicals in there to sustain it. So you actually don't want that. You don't want the coloring. You don't want all the anti-caking things, or, all those different things. And a lot of your farm foods, it takes a lot of work, because a lot of them are by weight. There are some things that are uniform weights, 1 pound packages, but a lot of it is variable. So that's a lot of the compliance that we go through. I think it's good, and it's there to protect people. But I would encourage people to look beyond that. Just because something has a USDA stamp on it, that means it's approved by the government. That's a good thing. It should be, but that doesn't mean it's healthy for you. So a lot of people, I get people who come in and ask about steak, and they go, "Oh, is it prime or choice?" And I go, "Well, most of our stuff's prime or above prime." But what that measures is like the marbling in the beef. Like, people think of a ribeye. So that, if it's prime, it's got better marbling. Choice is the next level down. But that's all it tells you. It doesn't tell you where it was raised. It doesn't tell you if it has hormones or chemicals in it. And typically there's not even, there's might be a USDA stamp, but there's not labels of ingredients in the beef, or a lot of times, sometimes in the chicken. And that's almost back to when I was talking about before, organic. You go, is organic good? I try to have everything at the store and eliminate my grocery bill, so that we're getting it all from our own farm or local farmers that we know. But there are a few things that we need to get. So if I go, I kind of just hit the organic section of our grocery store. But when you look in there, look at labels even on your organic, and you'll see that a lot of them still have the dyes. They're using a big thing is people are becoming aware we're not supposed to do seed oils. A lot of the organic section has tons of seed oils. And that seed oils are, have been linked to cancers and different other health issues. So there's the regulations, but you really just still have to be very much an informed consumer and educate yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd kind of, to wrap us up, I'd love to talk about the future. How do you envision kind of this going into the future with holistic, locally sourced food? And where do you see this in 5-10 years from now?
I think the most important thing really is communication and getting the word out. Obviously, we want to continue to grow as a business, but I don't want to become the next Walmart of farms somehow. And that's not really where I see us going. We actually had a customer that we've had for 4 years, and they moved to Tennessee. As you get the word out, and as people talk to other people and people realize the benefits themselves, and you share testimony, it just affects other people's lives in a natural sort of way. They're both IT people. So before they came to our store, they don't have any farm background, anything. But after 4 years of being at our store, they moved to Tennessee and bought an acreage, and they are starting to do, raise some things themselves. And I've had several handfuls of people go, I'd love to start a store like this. So I think that's the best thing. Like I was saying, all the way back to my dad and granddad and how I was raised is this. I think it would be so much better if somehow as a country, we would go back to small farming. We have to somehow, and I think all this, it really has to be education and then testimony and people experiencing the health benefits themselves and the flavor qualities and such, that it's a change of lifestyle. Like sometimes everybody's so busy and then we go, well, I want food really fast and I want it to be healthy and I want it really fast and I want it to be cheap. Well, there's just no way that at some point we're being lied to because, and you just have to be careful that, okay, on the package, it said healthy and it's cheap and I'm busy. But if you're so busy that we don't take care of ourselves, and, if you look at the health statistics in our country, just like I told you in my own testimony before I got into this, my heart, liver, kidney, wrong category. I was pre-diabetic. So if I hadn't made a change 6 years ago or so, where would I be now? I would be I would be miserable. And that's not saving any time. So it's very hard. We really need to get away from the processed food. And of course, I think people, as they watch TV, of course, a lot of them are aware that RFK is changing some things. And people ask me, is that really good? I go, yeah, it's awesome. But at the same time, if you wait for your government to save you, you might die. So just kind of making a joke. I was military and I also worked down. So it's good. I want those things to go forward. But people need to take just some self-ownership. And I think you're asking, where's the future of this? I think that lies a lot in education, because the government could change nothing. But if we all, as consumers, got to be smarter about and vote with our dollars and our actions, we would be healthier people. There would be a higher demand for the small local farmers, and we would take away from it. And then when the big corporate entities saw that, they would have to try and, move that way. So I think the demand and the education is the best way to go with everything.
Totally agree and really appreciated this conversation, Tony. Thank you so much for joining us.
You bet, Lydia. Thank you so much for having me. I had a great time talking to you.
Yeah, definitely. And for our listeners, make sure to check out the Ellsworth Crossing website and take a look at everything they have there. And don't miss another episode. So go ahead and subscribe to Food Tech Talk, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us for another bite-sized nugget of Food Tech Talk, supply chain insights from farm to fork. Make sure to subscribe. And if you love the podcast, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. To learn more about TrustWell and request your free demo of our technology platform that connects food formulation, products, nutrition analysis, and compliant labeling with traceability, recall readiness, and supply chain transparency, please visit us at www.trustwell.com and click Get Started or click the link in the show notes to learn more. Thanks for listening.